Okay, we're gonna get started. Call the meeting to order. Those present include Jonathan Cecil, Stephanie Morris, Guy Thielen, Harriet Applegate, Drew Herzig, and myself, Linda Striyewski. Roland Aglin is on the Zoom. And we know that,
Tree just fell over.
Oh, is that what that sound was?
That's
is that a real
feel that.
tree?
Feel that.
You don't have to do anything.
Graham and,
Die.
Graham and Craig cannot be here tonight. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. All right, so, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. We have the minutes from May 14th, May 15th, and May 21st. The ones for the 21st just got circulated today, so if you want to take a minute and look at those.
Did you find the names?
We found one of them.
I think I found both of them.
The ones that are printed don't have that, but you've got them.
Yeah, I think Thalia Sassman was the first one.
A resident living at 1808.
Yeah,
Drew,
which I think is Lou.
wasn't it your husband who asked the question about about hybrid voting?
Yes.
What was it, the name, Thalia?
Yeah, one of them's Thalia Sassman and the other one was Lou.
Was that Lou Radovovich?
Yep.
Was that Lou? I couldn't remember who it was. He doesn't live on a.
Thalia was the one that asked about the land acknowledgement?
No, she just made a comment about organizations being available to voter education
Oh.
for choice voting.
Yeah, she. Okay.
So Drew, what is your husband's name?
First name is Charles, and last name is Schweigert, Schweigert.
Okay, thank you so much.
Is he C?
There.
Yeah.
So, and what's Delia's last name?
Thalia Sassman.
Sasson?
Can you please tell us what letters these are attached to?
Well,
They're
Delia's on
attached
the
to,
last page.
The Charles was for G.
Charles?
Len was for C. Is it Len or Lou?
Lou. So, sorry, it's Lou Radovovich.
G.
I just-
And-
G is Lou.
No, G is Charles Schweigert and Q is Delia Sasson. Sasson?
Wait, sorry, what?
Delia?
Thalia Sassman. Sassman.
M-A-N. Okay, and is it D-A-L-I-A?
THAIA.
Oh, T-H. Okay, so just if you want to note those corrections on your minutes, so C is Lou Radovovich. G is Charles Schweigert. And Q is Thalia Sassman. So let me know when you've had enough time to look at those.
So we don't have anybody for M, right?
M,
Any residents?
okay, just a second.
You said you gotta use phrase versus voting. I'm sure it's not.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
Was it Chris Rome that asked the same question? The person who was talking about would the county board have trouble? I'm just asking. I remember they were like in tandem, but I can't remember if it was the audience and somebody just shouted or if it was.
That's kind of what I remember, it's just something from the.
It would turn into a conversation, yeah.
Couldn't tell who asked
I
it.
don't remember that at all.
let me see if my notes. No.
Let me see. First time. Not him. So C is Yvonne?
No, Lou.
C is Lou? I thought that was,
I think he goes by Lou.
got it, okay, I wrote it
Yeah, you're
wrong.
right. His legal name
Oh,
may
his
be
name is
Yovan,
Yovan?
but we always know him as Lou.
Cause I think Lou is the one who did M, cause he, I remember the same one who asked about departments and duties and if that was an overreach and that kind of a thing. I believe was the same one who asked about, does anyone else do this?
Yeah.
So I
Well-
think if Lou did C, then he also did M.
Okay.
Because of where he was sitting. And then if I'm wrong, I'm just wrong.
Well, I can make sure, but we'll have.
But I believe it was the same person, because there weren't many people talking like conversely, and it was kind of the same people.
So any questions?
Just one, can anybody remember what I said in response to Lou Valley Lawyers? Because I thought, did I say that the council organizing the executive departments was more common? Or that was the way it was done in all of the other cities that we looked at? Because I
This
didn't find
this
any-
says,
I know it says more common, but I didn't find any other way that the executive departments were organized. I'm not trying to put words in, I'm not trying to change it if I didn't say that.
well, I think this is,
It's good enough.
Kinda what you
It's
said.
good enough. It's wonderful. No, it's wonderful.
Inaccurate.
any other fill in the blanks, corrections, comments? Roland, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, so can we call for let me make a motion that we approve the minutes from the 14th and the 15th as circulated, and that we approve the ones for the 21st with the blanks filled in that we just discussed. Can I have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So, our first item under old business is emails that we've gotten. And I would propose that we set that aside for a second, and we can cover that when we get down with the comments from the May 21 meeting.
Could I possibly make an addition to the agenda?
Sure.
I was wondering if it would be possible in the final report to show how the commissioners voted on the big issues that were moving to council. Like as the University Heights report did, it showed the voting record for each of the proposed suggestions. Would that be possible?
That is a huge job.
Okay.
I don't
That is a
know if
huge
I'll be able
job.
to do it by, I don't think the meeting minutes record by individual vote.
Yeah, oftentimes we didn't even note it, Drew. We just said 6 yes, 1 no, or, so we don't even have it.
Okay.
In most cases. I don't think we ever really did it.
You'd have to probably watch the video to see who said what.
Well, even then, I don't know that you'd catch it because,
Yeah. I
Voices
didn't-
kind
it would
of
just be a
blend.
voice,
Yeah, it's a lot of it.
yeah, so I'm sorry, I think
That's
that,
okay. That's okay.
I mean, we have the counts though, right,
Yeah,
but just not
counts.
by people, okay.
yeah, we just don't have them by people.
And
But
we'll-
even going back and adding that would be a big job at this point. You have to go through all the minutes and some things, you know, we voted on things multiple times because stuff was changed in subsequent meetings, and I think that would be quite a challenge.
So if we don't wanna get in the emails, then where do we start?
Well, we would go down to 6C, which is just to let you know that I think you all got an email saying that we have a meeting with the Committee of the Whole on June 11th, starting at 6. And as I understand it, the plan that Council President Kuda has in mind is that there will be an hour, the first hour of that meeting will be for discussion with the commission. And then they're gonna spend the other 2 hours of the meeting, council is gonna spend that discussing how they are gonna handle their process for this to decide what they wanna do with the charter changes.
And will we be there for that?
Well, it's a public meeting, could stay for the whole
Oh, I
thing.
see what you're saying.
But the first hour is what's kind of about us.
Well, the first hour is for discussion, meaning they may have comments or questions and, may want us to. I told him to let me know how he would like to spend the first hour because, while we certainly could do a presentation, again, I suggested that perhaps council would like to watch that at home and save the time for true discussion because it's only an hour. So if they have questions or comments they want to discuss, I think that might be a more productive use of the group time. But he is gonna talk to the council members about that and get back to me. So that's all I know right now.
We didn't have a choice on the date, they just told us that was the date, right?
Well, they sent a doodle out
Oh, did they?
but they didn't send it to everybody. They sent the doodle to me and I asked that it be sent to everybody. But they were having enough difficulty trying to coordinate schedules of all the city council people, so that didn't happen. But I asked.
No, I think I remember that email. You were like, please send it through.
I requested,
And it never,
yeah.
Can I just go on record hoping that the council people actually read and give attention to what we've done before they come to the meeting?
Well, I hope they
Because-
will.
Because a presentation would be, if they don't know more than a presentation could cover by the time they come to the meeting, then I don't think the meeting's gonna be very effective. So I would really appreciate an effective meeting.
Yeah.
Just going on record.
Okay. Okay, so we're into the public meeting that we had on May 21st. I want to just very quickly say thank you to everybody for all your help with all the arrangements, and Drew was very helpful with the library, and Jonathan did all the copying, and everybody was really helpful with setup and collating and cleanup, and I appreciate it.
yeah, I just had
And I'm sorry you had to deal with the copying, Jonathan, because that was,
it was just
Really
it
low.
was a comedy of errors. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
yeah, well. Anyway, so I made a chart, which you have in your packets. And what I did was, I looked at my notes from what people said at the meeting and just tried to make a list similar to what Guy had done with comments we had gotten earlier from the mayor and from Council President Kuda, because I thought this might be a more efficient way for us to review comments and consider whether we wanted to take any further action or make any changes to anything. And then I added a couple items at the end to provide the gist of comments that I got from Barbara Hawley. You also got in your packets here a copy of an email that she sent with her comments on the ethics provisions. And then we had a couple of other emails that came in that you have copies of as well. So I would propose that we first go through the issues chart, if that's okay with all of you.
Yeah, and just so these are what was brought up at the meeting.
Yes.
Okay, not email oriented. Well, this was the at the meeting stuff.
Until you get to the last two boxes, which were things that, Barbara and I had further conversations and emails after the fact, because I followed up with her on her ethics comments. So the first one is number of signatures for initiatives. Do you have any comments on that?
I agree with it.
Which part?
Which part?
The decrease is too much and initiatives should not be too easy to launch and, so I think having done a lot of this many times, it's important when you're gathering signatures to talk to people, and it's important to talk to, relatively more than less people if you're gonna, it's a great, for the people who are launching the initiative campaign, it's a really good discipline early on to be talking to people about it, to be, and it gives you a sense of where people are, and it saves work later on because you've talked to relatively more people to get your signatures. I think it's a good idea. I think it's important to start, to start early on, both for candidates and issues, talking to people about them. You get a feel for where people are.
So you're talking about the initiative petition, or
Yeah.
are you talking about candidate petition?
Well, I would say it's true of both, but both 1 and 2, I think it's better to require relatively more signatures than relatively less signatures. Because it's important to talk it up and to get people's sense of things.
So this is where my confusion is in regards to is I know we want to put forward our best products, best suggestions, that type of thing. It seems like it seems very good and very good to talk about and get into, but is this something where we would say, hey, council, this was brought up, I would delve into it before putting it on the ballot? Would we try to figure it out now? Like, I'm trying to figure that out because they can change it, council can do the shift or have a meeting or more conversation, and it may very well be warranted, and then there's a difference between the initiative versus the candidate, and I think would be a really good idea to have that. So do we get into it and try to spar? Is it our best foot forward and say, here's some, not weak points, but areas you might want to give thought to? Because like, here, you bring up a great idea, and at the same time, I just remember some of the math and the proportion being so high, but I don't remember in which part. Without like,
if you look at the report has a lovely chart that
yeah, and I remember. I just
that
don't
Guy
remember which
Guy prepared,
was.
which was really helpful. And I think the discussion we had about this when we were going over these provisions and talking about the percentages, we didn't really focus on the
That's what
actual
I was.
impact until very close to the end. And I think when you look at the actual numbers of signatures you end up with, it is kind of striking. And I also honestly, when I was putting this chart together, went back and looked at the University Heights report, because I remembered they had a chart, and I honestly looked at their report because I was looking for, like, give me a sample chart so I don't have to think too hard about this. And I noticed that they had commentary that said that they changed the pool of voters just like we did, but they kept their percentage the same so that there wasn't such a dramatic change in the number of signatures required. So in the case of the initiative petition in our draft, if we kept at 10%, rather than went down to 5, then the number of signatures would be roughly 1,700 instead of 855. Whereas currently, it would be if you did 10% of, it would be 1,700.
And then are we looking to vote and amend it and come up with the right number right now? Is it because of and I'm also thinking though, because of it's in a couple days, I don't want to be hasty and extend it just for a few numbers. So it's like, what's the play here?
Well, we can decide whether we want to modify it. That's the purpose of the public input meeting, that you get input from people and you could decide whether you want to adjust it. Do we want to adjust it, or do we want to leave it as it is and note that we got this comment and council may want to consider, balancing those considerations?
So if I may, to me, I think what we have are two competing purposes, one of which is let's extend democracy as much as we can. Let's get as much will of the people showing and all as we possibly can. On the other hand, we have a desire to avoid nuisance affairs, right? Because that just costs time and money, and people get all excited. It doesn't help the community, all right? I've been a proponent, much a proponent for reducing the number of required signatures, and we did that a compounded way, right? We reduced the base, and then we also reduced the percentage. Now, Linda, you shared with me some of the comments somebody had given you about the Meadowbrook Park, where, to be honest, I don't know if anybody recalls that Meadowbrook, it's on Lee Road. there's now a building going up. And just pretty much at the very last minute, somebody in the community decided, well, we really would like no building, we want just a park. All right, and that issue got onto the ballot, or did it? It got
It's on the ballot.
got onto the ballot, yeah. Okay, and that was with the previous percentages in the previous ways. And I'm not gonna make a judgment of whether that was nuisance or not. I just offer that was something that got onto the ballot. People had enough interest in it to get it onto the ballot. So, and then you also mentioned that Barbara Hawley, I believe, was the one who mentioned it. Just had a discussion about the needs to balance that desire for democracy and avoiding nuisance. So where I know where I've come to by this point in time is that if we left the percentages where they were, which would be 10 and 15, I believe, all right, that would not represent a lot of people. That would not represent undue burden for somebody who wants to get something on the ballot. So I'd be comfortable doing that. And as Jonathan, as you're saying, we could, the council is going to be looking at this and deciding among themselves what they want to do with it. But I do think we should go forward with what we believe is the best solution. And after hearing public comment, after hearing the discussions, I would say that I've pulled back a little bit. I would go with a different base, which would be, we have a municipal election. I think Lakewood has the last mayoral election, but we would stay with the percentage that we have, that we had before. All right. Now, Linda, I'm not, if I might. So, having said that much, in University Heights, I think they actually increased their percentage from 15 to 20 in one instance at least. I'm not sure when it was. Where it was.
Well, I could look.
Because they felt that by changing the base, it reduced the number of required signatures too much, and they went from 15 to 20.
Is the report
So
up?
I'm
Or is it just on
confused,
mine?
you're saying
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up.
The percentage, remember we have percentage and base.
Okay.
So we changed the base to a new base, which is the people who are active enough and interested enough to vote, which I believe is about 50%, or not even 50% of the voters. But anyway, it's the people who are interested in voting.
So University Heights changed their initiative from 5% of the registered electors to 10% of the people who voted in the last regular municipal election.
Okay, so they did increase it, right?
They increased the percentage because they decreased the pool.
The pool, yeah.
And then for referendum, they went from 10 to 20
Okay.
for the same reason. And let's see,
Ask your question.
I don't see any. Did they make a change on recall? Lee?
Yeah, that's I don't remember the percentages, but the registered voter versus votes cast problem is not fixed in that provision. Should be, but it's not.
In the recall provision?
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see the recall one. Did they do it as a separate
Yeah,
bucket?
it's a separate amendment.
Okay. Let me see if I can find it.
So if I'm looking at the initiative here, are we talking about changing then this column, our proposed required?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing that I wanna note is that remember that these numbers for the number of people who voted, we're using the November 2023 election, which was an unusually high turnout.
I think, wasn't it August?
Well, I think the November,
November,
wasn't the November
okay,
one as well, or am I misremembering?
No, if it was the November one, that was the one with the,
Issue 1. Yeah,
Issue
you're
one.
right. August is-
which issue one, was it the,
It's the abortion.
was it that, okay. Remember that one, or was the state trying to not do it?
That was August.
Okay, all running together.
Right, August, right. We voted yes in one, but no one
Yeah.
wanted yes in the other, so.
Okay, so I pulled up the table. And what I'm thinking is, do we go for low hanging fruit and say, okay, maybe, and then keep going down this chart? Do we knock it out and
Well,
then?
I think we should make decisions.
Yeah, I think we should too.
Okay.
And I think it would be pretty tone deaf for us to not, after having gone to some I think you made the point, I just wanna underscore your point. you know, when the public took time to
Good.
come and read it and come comment, I think it's, if we don't accept any of the public comments, I think that would be a bad look for us.
The one person spoke to this issue, and I didn't see a lot of head nodding in the audience. Nobody else came up and said, I second that, I agree with that. I didn't see any of that, except he seemed to be kind of an outlier. So for, as far as public comment goes, kind of thing, because I was looking and I didn't see any head nodding. I'd like to take a chance on democracy. I think, you know, I would really prefer to make it easier to bring issues to the voters. And being a nuisance is maybe not our criteria. Maybe it's like, you know, of course they made Socrates drink hemlock because he was a nuisance kind of thing, but still, who decides what a nuisance is kind of stuff. So I feel that to make the error on the side of democracy, making it easier for people to bring things before the voters, making it easier for voters to say, oh, here's an issue I hadn't even thought about, but somebody took the effort to get signatures and bring it to us. That's democracy. That's a good thing. So
I would,
basically I'm saying let's leave it where it is and let the council decide.
I would dispute that that's democracy.
And how do you define democracy?
Well, I define democracy as if you get to the people voting at the polls. I don't define democracy as lowering signatures to get an issue before the polls.
What-
You could get a small group of people who's not.
Let's not waste
Well,
time.
I just don't think
batting this
I don't
back
think
and
that's
forth.
fair to say that equals democracy. And that if it's less democracy not to do that. I just think that's a false premise.
Letting more people decide on more issues to me is democracy.
Well, I disagree with that,
Okay, all right.
with making it easy to put things on the ballot is more democracy. I don't think that's fair.
Can I just offer, I think we've heard suitable expressions of the viewpoints. And I don't think we're gonna gain more from more expressions of the viewpoints. So it is just, I think it's something which we can, I believe it's time that we can just say,
Just
do
take
we
a
want
vote.
to keep what we have or not, and somebody make them up. Excuse me, so having said that much, I'll just say, I'll just make it simple. My motion is we leave the percentages where they are.
For
For
everything?
both, well, okay, we haven't talked about mayor and council people, right? We haven't talked about that
We're
yet.
talking about initiative, referendum, recall.
Those three, just those three, okay, yeah. Well, I don't, I guess for me, the logic would apply to all three. If you're gonna have, the logic applies to one, it applies to all three. Am I wrong or not? I mean, if you
No,
have,
I think you're right.
all right, and if that's the case, I would say, then the motion would be, let us take the amended charter as it is currently written, and leave those percentages, and then we can vote on yes or no, and if not,
So in other words, we're going to keep the percentages that are in the charter today.
yeah.
That's your motion.
No, sorry.
Like,
In our proposal.
so
I'm saying-
instead of doing 5, keep it at 5?
No, I'm not.
No.
What I'm saying is, we have a draft of the amended charter.
Mhm.
And I'm just saying, my motion is let's leave the amended charter unchanged for the purposes of this vote. Do you agree or you do not agree? And if you don't agree, then we can go back and say, okay, then what should those percentages be?
Okay, so you're saying go with our draft, don't make a change on the percentages.
That's right,
Okay.
And in our draft, the Prudence Initiative, our draft says 5%.
that's right,
Keep it at 5.
that's right.
Okay,
So
you
that's your
wanna keep
motion.
that.
That's my motion.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to go with the percentages we have in our current draft, raise your hand. And all those opposed, raise your hand. All right, so we're 1 yes, 5 no. Okay, so
So if I may make a motion, my motion would be to keep the percentages as they are in the charter now. So for instance, we would keep the first column, the 10%, the 15%, and the 25%.
So we're changing the pool of voters, but not the percentages.
Yes. And I can scroll or if anyone needs to see, just holler at me. So there's no change to recall of mayor, there'd be a 10% increase to a recall of council. Referendum would go back up to 15 and initiative would double to 10, just to be clear.
Mm-hmm. Do I have a second? Any further discussion?
I just have a question. Is there anything to be said for doing it the other way? You know, not saying switching it. I mean, I'm just asking the question.
Oh, you mean keeping the pool and not
Yeah,
changing the
yeah.
percentage?
We can't keep the pool. It's not legitimate.
Okay, all right.
I mean, there's case law saying it's not the right number, it's not the right pool to use, because if you're trying to get signatures and you're going for the number of registered voters, like that changes all the time.
Okay.
It's too hard to get your hands around that. So
Okay,
you,
that's why I
number of
asked the
people who
question.
voted is kind of a solid. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, so we've got 5 yes, 1 no. Okay. So the next question is similar, but it's the number of signatures on candidate petitions. And how do we feel about this?
Okay, since nobody's saying anything, I'll say what I think. The 50 and 100 are in the Ohio Revised Code. Lakewood uses it. I'm comfortable with that, because if somebody is going and trying to run for office and they can't get, if they get 100 signatures but they can't get any support, they're not going to get any support. So I think it's a little easier decision for me to say 50 and 100 look good to me. I think they're supportable.
Yeah, I thought the arguments about those numbers being too big a decrease felt compelling. You know, and we heard Jim Posh made that comment, and somebody at the public meeting made it, I think Marty Gelfand, who has run for office several times, in South Euclid made it. Now in South Euclid, he would have had to get 300 signatures. And, you know, he didn't seem to have a problem with that. But again, I think the argument is that if you're running for council or for mayor in a city the size of Cleveland Heights, getting more than 50 signatures or more than 100 signatures shouldn't be a big deal, given the size of the voting population and the number of people you need to get to support you if you're going to be a successful candidate.
I guess I would add to that it helps the candidate actually to have that discipline early on. Again, for the argument is the same, and it certainly if you can't get if you can't get a relatively reasonable sized number of signatures, then that means your campaign is. You gotta build up the campaign early on in order to be a successful candidate. So you can have a whole lot of candidates who aren't going nowhere. And
See, and to me, part of this also was under the assumption of like ranked choice voting. Was in my head, because then sure you can lower the bar and have more candidates, but then allowing more preferences or being able to kind of stack them against, it's not you have 3 slots and then it wouldn't be like it was the last election we had I can't remember how many people we ran, was it
6.
for 3 slots? And it
6
wouldn't,
people for 3 slots.
because I don't even remember the math on that, but instead this was kind of the cream would rise in terms of preference through rank, but lowering the threshold only worked in my mind if rank was implemented. It seemed like a if this then that statement, because otherwise then we end up with 6 people running for 3 spots and exactly what happened. And I have no idea how you would say that though, because so many pieces of this, it's like have these loose threads where you start as you pull, then the conversation continues and you go down a path and it just constantly happening. So it's like, do this only if, it's like a choose your own adventure, go to page 23, you fell down the well, sorry. It's like, so it's like, so I like keeping it with rank kind of being in there. Otherwise, then yes, we are keeping the same system, which doesn't necessarily work well, and increasing the number of potential candidates, which just seems like it would be a poor idea.
And why is, I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding how the ranked choice voting angle fits into this.
Because if there are more candidates on the ballot, but we're using ranked choice voting, then there's the sifting process built into the voting. If we're not using ranked choice voting, then we've got to choose, very judiciously where we're gonna spend our 1, 2, or 3 votes, because otherwise they may be lost because there's so many candidates out there, if I'm saying that.
Yeah, it's kind of like by knowing my second choice might be more people's first choice, and that person would now get my votes, and I'd still be happier with the candidate versus only pick these 3 and I hope it's the right.
Yeah.
But I think what I would have in mind is not changing it very dramatically, but maybe what it was in the 2023 council race, as I understand it, was around 300 votes. So if we changed it to
300 signatures.
300 signatures. But if you changed it to something like, 150 for city council and 300 for mayor, it's not a huge number. It's not something that's gonna, really be a massive burden on people.
I mean, when it comes to stuff like this, I'm always a fan of percentages, because then it can move with the population. If we shrink or if we get bigger, it allows there to be movement, so you can be proportional to the number of people you're dealing with than a hard number. And according to the report, the 2% for 23 was, like you said, 359 signatures. Is it 2% for the mayor and 1.5 for city council? Something like that I could see.
But then, say I'm interested in running for office, then I don't know where I go for the demographics. Where do I go to find out what's 1.5% of
Yeah.
registered voters?
It's
Is
not
that
registered
county board?
voters, it always has to be the people who voted in a particular election.
Exactly, but do I go to the county board of elections? Do I need a Freedom of Information Act thing that's like?
No, you get it from the Board of Elections.
And
I mean,
again,
the number of people who voted is readily available on the website.
and I don't understand
Versus a predictable number is what you're saying.
And I don't understand why we want to make democracy more difficult. I really don't. I don't think it's our place to say they need to try harder, they need to learn more, they need to have this experience. Who are we to tell people that?
Well, there's a reason why people need to get some signatures to get on the ballot.
And there's a reason why I don't feel it's my job to say, you who
I
want to run for office, you need to toughen up. You need to go out and hustle more, kind of thing. Who are we to say that?
That is not saying that. That is, it's an advantage for candidates.
You're saying that. You are saying that. You were saying this will be an advantage for you, candidate X kind of thing. I think you should go get more signatures. I don't think it's our place to say that. You do. You feel that way, and I'm fine. And as Guy would say, I think our positions are pretty baked in, so there's no point in further debate.
I'm just trying to look to see what the charter says now about this. I think it's a percentage now, isn't it?
It was 7.3 of the current charter requires signatures of not less than 2%. What is that even?
7.3.
Yeah, if you get
Oh, okay.
1.99.
So it's 2% of the number of voters.
Who voted in the last
So-
regular election? So I'm reading this part right here.
Yeah, so the
Everybody-
number that's in our little chart was 5%, 8.55. So 2%, what's 2% of 17,000? It's like 340.
Well, this will ensure they can do math if they want to run for council,
340.
Where's the chart?
It's in the report
I know what page.
on page 19.
Okay, let me go there, that might help. 16.
While we're doing that, can I just make a point I believe is relevant, which is that when somebody chooses to run for mayor or chooses to run for council, they do this knowing they're putting their name and their reputation on the line. So it's not like you're going to get a lot of people running to run for these offices. I don't see that as a risk. It might be a risk, but I don't see it as a risk.
We have perennial candidates. There's two maybe candidates who run a lot and get almost no votes.
I'm sorry,
And it's not unusual for people to run many times
Okay.
and get almost no votes. They don't campaign, they just
Okay.
run.
All right,
I mean, it's not unusual. I can think of two people
okay.
who have done that.
I cannot find it for the life of me.
Page 19?
Yeah, upper right,
It's right there to the right.
is that
It's
what
right
you
up there.
wanted, Jonathan?
Well,
no,
this is,
no.
this,
That
Keep
one,
going to
yeah.
the right. Isn't that it?
no, this is the recall of mayor initiative, and then I don't
Oh,
have another chart.
you're looking for the one, I don't think we made a chart for this.
Okay, no, that's what okay, so it was just like, that's what I thought, and then when you said 800, I totally
Yeah, I'm
got it
sorry.
wrong. No,
But I
no,
was
you're
looking
fine,
at
I
the
just
chart for the initiative.
got it, cause you were getting into the elected, okay,
Uncharted.
I just had a whole moment.
territory.
Okay, so let's do this. I wanna make a motion that we increase the signatures to 150 for city council and 300 for the mayor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Just to repeat those numbers again.
150 and 300.
And it's 150 for council and 300 for mayor. Good. We're doing it in reverse order than the text up there.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand.
I'll vote for that.
We've got 5 yes. Any opposed?
Opposed?
1 no.
Are you making notes in yours? Okay, so won't need this? Or do you need me to make notes?
No.
here? Okay.
No, it's okay. Okay. So the third point on the list is the authority to define departments and director job descriptions, which we talked about a lot. And I think this is one of the changes that really reflects the change in the form of government. And it is consistent with mayor, city council forms of charters. So what do you all feel about that?
I feel I may have missed some of those discussions, so what was the other than comparing it to other charters, what was the group's argument with this?
Well, it really has to do with the way that authority is typically divided between the mayor and city council. So what we proposed is city council defines the departments and the job descriptions for the directors, but the mayor retains the authority to supervise the departments, and he appoints directors subject to approval of council, which is, I think right now, I'm not sure if right now all of the appointments are subject to council approval. I know some of them are, but we changed it so they all are to kind of make it consistent.
So right now, how does it work right now versus what we're?
Well, right now, the provision about defining the departments and the director's job descriptions used to be in the hands of the city manager. So when the elected mayor ballot issue was put on the ballot, they just swapped out mayor for city manager. So that's what's in there today. So we're proposing to shift that to city council.
And if I remember right, it gets, for lack of better, the federal government or any balance of power between like executive and legislative gives a legislative authority to set powers and duties of directors, but the mayor still oversees them and handles the day-to-day and does the executive administration.
And proposes appointment of them and can fire them.
And wasn't there something, I'm just drawing a blank, with the creating new departments?
Yeah,
That
they
is
can't,
the
they
mayor or
can't,
council?
take away the ones that are there, but council could create new ones.
Okay. And is
They
that
can't-
all
they
rest of
can't-
council?
They can't take away what's there though.
But is it fair to say that we changed it to have it comport with a mayor, city council form of government?
Yeah.
That the other way is
City
specific to city manager.
City manager.
Yeah, I don't have an issue, I'm good with how we changed it. I don't know if.
Yeah, I opposed it and I still oppose it, and particularly to abolish or combine departments kind of thing. I mean, what if you were working in a city department and the council decided to abolish your department? You have no recourse, nothing.
They're all employees at will.
Say what?
People who work in departments are employees at will.
Unless they're unionized,
I don't think a lot of the city employees are though.
they might be at some point.
I
You know,
just think-
if council's gonna abolish a department, they're gonna have to take things like that into account and deal with those realities of employment,
And again, I think
just as anybody else would.
we heard from other other governments or municipalities kind of thing, that in some of their opinions, that our city councilors need to mature more into their role of legislators. And I think, and I personally agree with that. So I think giving the council at this time more authority to do what some of them have zero experience in doing, creating administrative departments kind of thing, that sort of stuff, I think is not good governance. I think that needs to stay on the administrative side where the professionals can handle it. We could modify this, but to abolish determined functions and duties kind of thing. I don't think our legislators have enough administrative experience to do this wisely.
Okay, fair enough. Any other comments?
Only to say that the existing organization and executive function cannot, where the departments are defined, the charter says that they can't be changed, that can't be abolished. So we aren't turning over to, as if you make the assumption as you do, Drew, they're not ready for this responsibility. They don't have the ability to do much harm, is the way I would say it.
Well,
In fact, they don't have the ability to do any harm,
If-
if you like what we have already.
if they're not changing what's already there, but then giving them the ability to change it in the future, why are we doing that?
Because they can add, for example. There might be a need for an additional department.
And can things not get added otherwise?
Well, I think the larger question there is who's responsible for the organization and the executive branch? All right, and today it's the mayor, because when the committee for elected mayor made their modifications, they just replaced city manager with mayor. All right, it is, and everywhere I looked, it is always the legislative branch determines what the executive branch organization is. So if we want to do that, we would be an anomaly, at least, if not unique.
If we wanna keep it, or keep it as a charter currently.
Yeah, to say the mayor has free, basically the mayor can do whatever he wants to do with his department. That's just not anywhere else that I know of.
See, in my mind, the departments are there to do the will of the people. And if council is setting legislation, then reorganizing departments would be part of that to make sure that it can be carried out. Like, and putting things together, pulling apart, etc., so that the legislative, the authority of the will of people can happen. Because all the administration is there is to administer, not set the agenda. So to me, you would sustainability has popped over the last few years. Like, okay, guess what? These two departments are now together and you're called sustainability. Have fun. But it would be part of the legislative oversight, in my opinion.
I don't hear any motions. Is anybody making a motion?
Well, to move it on, I move that we keep the current draft proposal language as we see here.
So you're saying keep it as we have it in our draft?
Yes.
I second it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I believe the whole thing about electing a mayor was because they felt that the council was not responding enough to the community's desires as far as the executive branch goes. And now we're,
Drew, I don't know that was it.
well, that's your opinion. I have my opinion. And
That's
my
okay.
opinion is that and we heard from that, people saying that, when they came in and said, we didn't like the city manager, we couldn't get the council to replace him, so we thought, let's put in a mayor instead, kind of a thing. Whether that was the right solution or not, I don't know, but that's what I heard some people tell us, kind of thing.
I see your point, yeah.
Yes. So, and now we're putting it back again where, it's gonna be the city council once again determining the shape of the administrative branch. So I think this is progressive.
Any further discussion?
Did I get a second? Oh, Guy seconded.
He
it.
said-
Wait a second, we changed it, so we're voting to keep what
We're
we changed.
voting-
That's
keep
right,
what
the
we changed
motion
it.
is to keep the draft and
As,
the charter the way it
as
is.
is up on the screen.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 4 yes, 2 no. That passes. Okay, the next two items, 4 and 5 really have to do with ranked choice voting and just the notion that it's gonna take an education process, which I think we recognize. So I don't think we need to do anything with that unless somebody's had some revelation that they think we shouldn't move forward with ranked choice voting. And I'm not suggesting we change that, but
I will just comment that Howard Mayer, who made that comment, was a member of the former Charter Review Commission, which basically
I think he
recommended
said
no
so.
substantive
Right.
changes.
I think he even said so, didn't he?
Yeah.
When he was talking.
Yeah, he said he was on
I'm in
the,
favor of the city
but I mean,
manager.
that was the commission that basically,
Right,
cleaned up the charter but didn't
Right, yeah.
make any changes at all, so.
whatever. All right, so I don't think we need to take any further action on those. Okay, number 6, this has to do with who would be asked to attend meetings, and I think we did talk about this quite a lot. And we decided that we would have some flexibility about who could be invited to attend meetings. And that we're gonna have an operating proposition that both the council and the administrative staff are gonna be reasonable about this and cooperate so that things can work okay without people making unreasonable demands or administrative people putting up unreasonable obstacles. So I don't feel we need to do anything to change that, but what do you all think?
I've opposed this and I still oppose it. When mayor, city administrators and city administrative officers, that's great, but when we get down to employees required to appear before the council and answer questions, I think that's going too far. That's putting the individual employee in much too exposed a position, and it's completely ignoring the structure of the administrative side, where it's like, if you want the answer, you talk to the director. You don't go around the director and say, no, I want to talk to employee so-and-so because I think I can squeeze them better than I can squeeze the director. I mean, the rest is to be, but if we just take out that section where it goes right down into the employees, and where you had it before, Jonathan, I'd really prefer to see that language.
I mean, yeah, it's this here or it's the same as this here.
Yeah, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th line, I believe. 1, 2, 3,
You're talking about the
5th line.
administrative officer.
The administrators, and then and employees. If we could take out the and employees, I feel much better because I feel that is really, that is putting a target on the back of every city employee that will make them very afraid of doing something that might piss off a certain city councilor.
Can I just bring to light, we all attended the meeting, so we know what was said there. There were 2 emails received concerning, that mentioned this particular issue. And I'll just, Melody Joy Hart, believe that it should be limited to directors, and I believe cast some question about whether or not we should rely on the goodwill of people who are involved there. But Gary Benjamin also sent an email as an attorney and said that he asked that it be only the department directors as well. I've been a little uncomfortable with this the way it is right now, but I would say that to speak in terms of requesting or asking for the director to attend, where the council can also make a specific request that somebody on his staff, his or her staff, would attend as well, with the director, might remove some of the burden from feeling the person's at target has a bullseye on his back. But I think there's a fair, there just seems to be some concern about having other than directors being required. And then there's, the other concern is that, as I raised before, which is that when we make when you set a specific date and time and place where someone's supposed to show up physically to answer questions, I think that's hard to, it's hard to assume that there isn't the possibility that something can interfere with that. And where's the recourse?
But Guy, I feel very, very strongly on that last point, that we have to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're going to act in good faith, and that if somebody has, a good reason why a particular day and time doesn't work, they'll reschedule things.
Okay.
Now, if you want to suggest a change so that instead of saying that city administrative officers and employees respond and make this so that a director can delegate attendance to somebody, you could provide for, we could do that. But I think it's really important for the functioning of our city that information can flow, and it hasn't been flowing. So I think it's important for us to do something to address that issue. But if there's something specific you want to suggest in the way of a change, what would that be?
Well, I think, first of all, there's two parts there. And the second part, which relates to how do we protect somebody from having to show up physically at a particular moment, I'm willing to give on that and say, well, if we're all going to rely on goodwill, all right, so we rely on goodwill. But in terms of who has to appear, I would say that I think it would be a better formulation to say the director or director delegate would be required to attend to a council meeting.
I have a question on this, or a question/comment. I mean, say you have a very, very, very problematic director. And just say in the future, it happens to be the future female mayor's brother. And who has, and so the mayor is gonna stand by her brother. And so it might be important for council to be able to talk to people who work underneath this director, who, may never have showed up to work, or may have said, made unreasonable demands, or may have let the thing go to rack and ruin because, he or she wasn't, or the brother. I guess the reason to have council be able to talk to staff people is if you have problematic directors that the mayor supports.
What happened to the assumption of good faith? We're always assuming good faith on the part of the council, and we're always seeming to assuming bad faith on the side of administrative when we put these hypotheticals about what if we have a horrible, director kind of thing. It's either one or the other. We assume good faith on both sides or we don't. And one of the things we heard from the public was they think we're making a mistake in assuming good faith. And we probably would not be here as a Charter Review Commission if everything was assumed in good faith, because it was partly the battle going on between council and mayor that triggered this Charter Review Commission in the first place. So I think if we assume good faith, we can't put out these scenarios about bad faith on the administrative side, because that's not assuming good faith.
Well, and the mayor and all of city council are elected. So if we're electing that mayor, we deal with the decisions that mayor makes until they're not reelected. And I agree with the good faith argument that if we're using good faith as our argument for most of these changes, or a lot of these changes, sorry, most may not be correct, then wouldn't good faith mean that we don't need to make these changes, right, in the first place?
Oh, I think we need to make some changes because we've
I'm just-
seen what has happened over the last couple of years. But I think the point about the employee is a reasonable point, and we can make an adjustment to try to address that. I think that's reasonable. Do you want to suggest specific language?
I would say director or the director's designate.
So this is in 3.12.
And it would not refer to employees then, it would be director centered, it would be centered, focused on the director.
What about saying it requires the mayor, city administrator, and city administrative officers or their representatives
Do you
to
want me to go to
attend?
the charter itself?
Yeah, why don't you go to the charter in 3.12?
That way we're not off the report language.
All right,
You can make that larger or not?
you will once
You
I
like
find
this?
it. Careful, he'll put in a comma.
3, 11, 12. Okay, I believe it's this last paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
So the mayor, city administrator, and city administrative officers, and then that's where it goes. Oh, and let me make sure that this is, okay.
So I think what we would be saying is that in the first line of that paragraph, you would take out employees. And in the third line, you would say may request that the mayor, city administrator, or administrative officers attend. And then we need to add the idea that the administrative officer may instead send a representative from his or her department. Is that what we're saying?
Well, let's slow down a little bit. So we got the first sentence, we take out employees. That's clear about that, that's okay.
Instead of may request a person attend
Well,
specific.
I'm now concerned about, without limiting the preceding sentence, the council may request that a person attend specified meetings. Person,
Oh, that would be the administrative.
So the person, instead of person, it should say mayor, city administrator, or city administrative officer.
okay, so the, right, we'll wait for it to get done.
I'm just gonna put an and or, we can correct me in a minute. Officer,
You didn't have those language in the first thing, okay, yeah.
And then in the last sentence, it could say, when the council president or a committee chair has made such request, the person requested to be in attendance shall attend, or the administrative officer may send a delegate.
Why
Now,
why
is that
would
the
we make
thrust of
that
it?
second change since when you're already dropping out off employees? Do you wanna
Let's wait until we get the language up to just.
is that correct? I don't know.
I don't know, see, we gotta work on the language before we start debating it. The unit shall attend or the, how about or may send a delegate? Just take out shall attend or may send a delegate. Would that be
Yeah.
briefer and more clear?
Yeah.
Whoop,
I don't know.
But I think you don't wanna say or personnel.
yeah, I was gonna get back to that, so. When the council president or committee chair has made such a request, the official director.
Yeah, why don't I just say these 3 positions again?
You can.
Get rid of any ambiguity.
Don't take out requested.
Or personnel requested,
I
or
wish
just
we
keep
Not
the
take
word,
out personnel.
take out personnel?
Yeah.
So it'd say,
Okay.
when the council president or
We can
committee
slow
chair has
down a
made
bit.
such request, the mayor, city administrator, and or city administrative officers requested to be attended shall attend. Or may send a delegate to the meeting.
Yeah, or the city administrative officer may send a delegate.
so
You
can we
don't
talk about
state
this?
Well, let's decide on what the wording is. We're going really too fast for me, so we've now changed the last 3 lines, this mayor, city administrator, and or city administrative officers requested to be in attendance shall attend or may send a delegate. That's the change we're discussing?
I have no idea.
See,
Well, no, I think we are discussing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah,
Linda is suggesting that the delegate, I believe you're suggesting, Linda, the delegate apply only to the city administrative officer and not to the mayor or city administrator. That's what you
Oh,
said.
it could apply to all.
Can it apply to all 3? Okay, so the way it's written, it applies to all
All
3.
three.
that's why we need to have language in front of us. So, and I think somebody in one of the emails said answer questions asked by any member of council, which is another issue kind of thing. But so currently, we've got city administrator, and city administrative officers in the first sentence. That's the same thing, we took out personnel in the second sentence, and then we added or city administrator, or may send a delegate in the third sentence. So those are.
Harriet, you have a question?
I do. You're basically taking away all the power. The council, if you say that any one of these people can send a surrogate or a delegate, you're basically taking away the power of city council to request the mayor, the city administrator, or any department director. Because they can all say, I'm gonna send somebody else.
So what would you like it to say?
So, well, my personal opinion is, and I like the way we had it, I don't want any changes at all. But if you're gonna take out employees, I would just leave it at that. You know, I wouldn't take out employees, cause I personally don't agree with that for reasons I've already stated. But if you could just take out the employees and not mess with anything else, because if you mess with everything else, they can all send a surrogate.
If at the end of the day, though, the delegate is getting the questions answered, so maybe it's more specific, like, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Is that city council gets their questions answered based on they weren't getting information or said they weren't getting information.
And possibly a delegate would be the most informed person on this particular issue to go there, kind of thing.
Well, that's why we wanted to let them be able to invite an employee in the first place, which is what you were objecting to.
Yes, and that's why I said I don't think the council would know which employee would have the best answers to a particular question. That would be the administrative department to say they're asking this question, this is the person who knows the most, we can send them, instead of council, you know, kind of thing.
You say, and send an informed delegate.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
We spent a lot of time talking about this to bring about this language. I don't know why we're spending all this time rehashing all this
Well,
stuff.
some of us objected to it, and we had
Okay.
community input also saying this is problematic.
So how about this? I motion not to change it. Is there a second? Aaron's
Second.
got a second. At least decide whether or not we're gonna continue to talk about it.
I second.
Cool.
And again, we're talking about not changing what is in the current proposed draft, not what's up on the screen.
Correct. Not changing what is the current proposed draft.
Any further discussion?
I just want to address Harriet's comments concerning, well, if they can send a delegate, then they could avoid appearing themselves, all right? I just want to ask, in the circumstances, the context of municipal government, would the mayor, for example, have the ability to not show up before council if they had, or the city administrator? In the context of politics and municipal politics, I don't really see that as being a high risk. If there's a big issue that the community is concerned about, they're not going to try to avoid even showing up to answer questions. I think. I'm not an experienced politician, but it's just like, how would that look how would that look in the newspaper?
It all depends on what's going on.
But aren't we assuming good faith?
Exactly, we're
The mayor attends city council meetings
No, I understand,
regularly,
but
so.
let's just say the city administrator.
It's easy to imagine it happening. Let's not look at this mayor and this council. Let's think of things objectively. You've got corrupt mayors all over the country, you've
Here we
got
go
corrupt
again.
councils,
Here we go
well,
again.
I don't necessarily assume good faith.
Exactly.
I
And-
agree.
and
I
we're-
agree with
Linda
that.
said we're basing our decisions on the assumptions.
No,
of-
Linda feels strongly about that. We're not all basing our decisions on that. I
Well,
happen
that
to
was in
think
the report.
that,
That language isn't in the report if you want to file
Well,
a
no
minority
one changed
opinion.
it, so it's as is. And if anyone had a
Well-
problem with it, they had an opportunity to change it.
okay, so I don't wanna go that far, but I happen to think that you make a charter to cover all eventualities. And there's a lot of corruption in politics. And there's a lot of issues, and even if it isn't corruption, there's differences of opinion. So if you take out this mayor and this council and think of it, a future mayor and a future council whom none of us know, it seems to me that it makes sense to set it up so that the mayor or the mayor, for instance, if the mayor could delegate somebody on an issue that he or she, future mayor, doesn't want to talk about, that he or she could send the city administrator. I don't think that's a good, I think a charter should say that if we're giving council a power to ask people to show up, to hear if there's, then the people that, the responsible people should be required to show up.
Well, the charter also gives the council subpoena power. I would say if in this scenario.
Which I oppose, by the way.
Exactly, but you should support it, because if the council has this refractory mayor who refuses to show up when asked to attend a meeting, the council can subpoena that mayor. If things get back to that kind of thing. But Keith's point about, not to put words in your mouth, but the optics of that would be disastrous for any elected official. Why would somebody expose themselves to that sort of thing, saying, I refuse to attend the council meeting?
And I'll probably say, it doesn't mean
Examples all
that,
over the country all the time of people refusing to show up.
I would say that it doesn't mean it would be impossible. I would just say that it reduces the risk of that occurring to a level that we can accept in terms of what we're saying. Stephanie had a suggestion about a delegate and adding the word informed delegate.
I know we can't define what informed means, but it was just a thought.
Well, I actually want to argue that would be a good addition, because if someone shows up at the meeting and says, I don't know, then whoever it is that sent that person obviously did not comply with the charter. Okay? They either know the answers or they don't. They either know enough.
Then why would they ever answer? They just keep saying you don't know.
But that's what I'm saying.
I'm saying, but then never be an informed delegate. Just always say I don't know.
Well, okay.
It's a way around
I know,
it.
But what do you,
I don't
I'm
know
sorry,
that I
I'm missing
really-
your point. Are you saying?
No, I'm saying that's the trouble with the word informed is
yeah.
it gets subjective, and if the person says, well, do you know the answer? You can say no, and if everyone before council says no, they're not an informed delegate, I comply with the charter, and the council gets 0 out of it. Like it's a loophole.
What if
Because you're putting a qualifier that doesn't
Yeah.
have its firm definition.
Right.
what
You
if we
have to be able to define what informed means.
Like you've been here 10 years and blah, blah, so whether you know the answer is irrelevant, you are informed.
It's like using
I think you
expert or
could-
something,
you could-
yeah.
would
Yeah.
saying appropriate delegate rather than informed be any better or not better at all?
If we're gonna use the word delegate, I don't know that we need to qualify.
Okay, well, we do have a motion and a second on this table. Which is, yes vote would say no changes to the current proposed draft.
Yes. Yeah, yes. I hear when it does that.
Can we?
All right, do we wanna vote?
Call a question.
All right, how many people wanna vote yes, which means there's no change to the current draft? How many wanna vote no? B, you're not voting?
I move too fast. Give me a minute.
All right, take a minute.
Gee, if it makes you feel better, it can't pass.
What's that?
Can't pass.
Why can't it pass?
It's 3-2 right now. You can only get to, oh wait, never mind. I've got that backwards. Not 2-3. 3-2. Okay, never mind.
You've tried.
I abstain. That is 3-2 and it passes.
Okay, then it stays as it is.
So it was literally 3, 2, 1.
Yep.
I just want to make sure. It's funny, how often does that happen?
And this is
One,
one
two,
where I
three.
would like my opposition vote noted, because I think this is disastrous policy.
Noted.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're on to
Hybrid council?
7. So again, I do wanna say, Drew, that your recollection was correct, we did vote on this, so you were right about that. But-
And I apologize for correcting you in public.
Oh, no,
but I
it's
thought
okay.
it was
Not a
important
problem.
to-
Not a
Because for the community to know that
No, it's not a problem.
we had brought it to a vote, at least they know we were serious.
My
about it.
memory was never perfect, and it's getting worse by the day. So does anybody feel we need to have more discussion about hybrid council?
No.
I do not.
I motion not to make any changes.
Well, we don't need to take a motion if nobody wants to even talk about it. So-
Okay.
Okay. The next item is the land acknowledgement.
I don't think there's anything to discuss.
Will I agree with that? Does anybody want to discuss it further?
Well, I certainly would like to see a land acknowledgement in there.
I know that, we've already put that in the report.
Yeah, so, I mean, I thought the woman who spoke, was that Roper? Was that what, it was interesting, she said, I thought this was a progressive city and this is what progressive cities do, so just wanna note that.
Well, again, in the report, there is gonna be a good section about, from the dissenting opinion about why some people thought it should be, so at least there's that.
Any further discussion? Okay, the next one was a question about how it's gonna be presented to the voters. Oh, I'm sorry, we skipped over the one about East Cleveland. We didn't look at the East Cleveland charter. I mean,
No, and they were
there's
getting
a whole lot of
into-
charters and I'm not prepared to look at any more charters.
Well, no, they were also talking about the 80s and history,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like,
Cool.
okay,
Yeah, what was the,
common.
do you remember, did the person give a reason why we should have looked
I
at
think
East
just because
Cleveland?
they made a change in the 80s.
So yeah, they switched in the 80s to a council mail for form of government, and look where they are now.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
That's not our issue to talk about,
Yes,
we're past that.
Yeah.
I also think there's probably few more factors than
Yes,
just
yeah.
their form of
Yeah,
government.
slightly.
So item 10, about how the charter is gonna be presented, we've talked about that a lot. We've gotta wait for council to come back to us on that. So I don't think we have any more to talk about regarding that unless somebody has a suggestion for something more we should be putting in the report about that. But we've kind of put it in council's hands because they have to make some decisions.
No, and do you remember exactly where you would make the offer to help? No, I'm serious.
It's
like,
in there, but I don't
No.
remember where.
I knew it was early on, and I can't remember the paragraph or
I think it's towards the beginning.
Yeah.
I need to take a 2-minute break here.
Sure.
Remember it was early.
What is it that, what does this help? I'm not following this.
Oh, so
These are
if the
discussions.
council needs our help in crafting language, because
Just
we're
that we- Yeah, what you were saying, Drew.
Yeah.
And it feels, so I was trying to look for it. It alludes to we know this is complicated and that there are buckets and many ways to
Oh, you're
slice
talking
it.
about the report, not the charter.
Yeah, but it was basically the offers like that we
Yeah.
know it's complicated,
Right, yeah.
so
and it's sort of like until they pick what dishes they want,
yeah.
we don't know what recipes to use, you know? I always get back to food metaphors, I don't know.
You watched the cooking show, the
I used to
Made-
watch the Great British one until they
Great British
changed the
The judges?
yeah, and the buffoons, so.
oh, what changed?
Well, they swapped out Mary Berry, and she was my favorite. And then they had, I forget the two women who were kind of the sidekicks, and they brought in some, like, just jokers who didn't care about baking, but they would make any obscene joke they could possibly
really?
make in every occasion.
Oh, cause when did they do that?
It was about 4 years ago.
Cause I know several people who it's their favorite show on television,
Yeah,
I always wondered.
used to really enjoy it a lot.
but it sounds like it completely changed.
They realized a lot, yeah, they went,
Okay, we ready to go to the next one?
Mhm.
So,
It was people's question about what that meant. I think, did we get that cleared up, Jonathan, sort of
which
explained?
meant?
Oh, no, I mean,
Helping the council to create
Well,
language.
only that if the council were to decide, you know, let's suppose that the council has a burst of energy and they decide, because this is a lot,
Yeah,
you know, this is a lot, I don't mean that at all disrespectfully, but if they decide at the end of June or in August when they come back that, you know, we think we would like to put some stuff on the ballot and we wanna put this and this and this.
Mhm.
Well, I would be willing to help them assemble the pieces, parts they need to do that. Now, I'm not gonna speak for all of you. And, you know, right now, we have a resolution setting up this commission that said we were supposed to present a report by the end of May. It doesn't say when our you know, when we dissolve. So I've asked specifically, I've asked Tony to let us know, because we're not intending this to be ad infinitum. I mean, it's fun, people, but it's not gonna go on forever. So, yeah, but I think if they came back and said, we'd like you to help us sort out what to put on the ballot, I'd be willing to help them do that. So that's kind of what it amounts to.
Makes sense.
The next was the mayor's comment on, yes, there's a focus on checking the mayor, should the focus on checking city council too?
Yeah, so I think, I suppose that the way that I look at what our first job was given us by council was to see what the charter needed to balance out based on the new form of government. And the second one was to review the 2019 charter, and the third one was do whatever else we thought was appropriate. Okay, so I don't view that, I mean, the mayor says checking the mayor. I don't view what we've done as checking the mayor. I view what we've done as trying to balance out the legislative and the executive branches. And I recognize that, you know, people could have a difference of opinion about that, and he could have a difference of opinion about it. But I don't think that we have been checking one versus the other. I think we have been trying to balance, but what do you all think?
So my takeaway from that was similar to yours in terms of, because the voters added the mayor in and it got plugged in, there were pieces of just, it was silent on some issues. And so to bring balance in, it was, well, then we had to say, okay, and discuss, okay, does this belong to council, does this belong to the mayor? Like, we had those explicit ones, and a lot of it can feel like we were chipping at the mayor, and to me it was well-rounding and, like you said, bringing balance. Because it was, okay, you're legislative, you're executive, and who fits where, and there was a whole lot in the charter about the council and very little about the mayor because of the way it was done initially, with it just being inserted as a voter referendum. And so that was my takeaway, is to, if one's in more than the other, when you start mentioning kind of the mayor more, it's gonna seem like it, but I felt that there were at least a few times where it was, okay, if council's doing this, can the mayor do this? Or the recalls, or it was like, do we have the same provisions, or are they similar, or is it a lower threshold for council because there's more of them and there may or may not be a low restriction? So that was my takeaway, is we did our best. Balance, I thought, is a good word. That was really long. I could have said that so much shorter.
I just have a very quick comment. I think mostly we tried to follow what other cities who have a mayor, elected mayor, and an elected council have, because the CEM people just switched out, you know, they didn't switch anything else. They just switched out city manager for mayor, and the city manager had a whole lot more, the city manager ran the city in a way that, you know, council and mayor division isn't. So I think we just tried to make our changes comport with what this different form of government is, as opposed to the former form of government.
I think that balance is not really a well-defined word. So I like that, at least I've been guided, and I believe maybe others have been guided also by the idea of ensure that the different departments, that the council and the mayor have what they need to do in order to fulfill their responsibilities. So I personally don't see we did anything to check the mayor. We didn't do anything to do anything more than enable people to do their job. And that's where I would want to leave it at myself.
And I feel we did check the mayor every time it came up to who shall have the authority. We took it from the mayor and gave it to the council. And I know people did that with the best of intentions, but I think, again, considering the relations between the council and the mayor, I think we're going to make governance more difficult. So I respect everybody's good intentions and perceptions on this kind of thing, but I really do think we put our thumb on the scales in favor of the council in our revisions.
Anybody else have any comments? Roland, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Oh, that's.
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I don't have enough information to say whether we checked the mayor or not. I just don't have enough information. I have a feeling we have not, but I'll bow to others.
And could we, I guess what would be the issue that what should we try to do now if
Well, unless somebody wants to make a motion, we don't
unless
do
somebody makes a
anything.
motion, we just go on?
Oh, there's nothing.
We just go to the next one.
Okay, so I don't remember what exactly the mayor said about this. Let me see if I took any notes on this.
I was confused because when he's talking about removal, I thought we brought
yeah.
the council and the mayor into the same removal process the same way. And so I didn't understand.
Yeah, yeah, I think, let me make a suggestion that we defer discussion of this till we get to the comments about the ethics and the removal provisions, and it will make more sense in that context, I think. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
Okay, and then we've already talked really about 13, which has to do with the department organization. We've discussed that tonight. Now, the mayor also mentioned this idea that he wanted something in here about flow of information from council to the mayor, and honestly, I don't know where that's coming from, because the council doesn't have any information.
I mean, everything they do is a public meeting. Every committee meeting that meets so all of the records are there. I just don't know what could they keep, because if their job's to legislate or enact, they have to do it all publicly. They can't do anything.
Right,
Whereas the idea is like an administrative person, you can get
right.
the infamously bad employee or whoever it is we hate today, in the back office, burning things. That can happen because there's a lot of people in administration, but legislatively, there's a very set number of them with I don't know.
There's a high degree of transparency on the legislative side at this point, right?
It's just like built in because they literally can't do things. But that was just my.
Again, that's assuming good faith. I know that when you're new to public meeting law, you sometimes slip up. I think there's been some slippage lately kind of thing, and there was some concern, I believe, about is a majority of counselors speaking to each other off the record, and how would you ever find out about that? There's absolutely no way. But I think it was partly the feeling like we've set up the charter so that all the information has to flow from the administrative side to the executive side, and there doesn't seem to be any return mechanism. But I don't think that's anything we can write into the charter.
Yeah, and then, the way the public law set up is if someone felt it was, they would follow the process to go to court to, it sucks, but that's just,
Difficult, yes,
there are already
That's
some
how it works.
processes
Yep.
to try to
Yeah.
check.
I'd also like to note that the mayor had the opportunity to bring to us any issues in that regard when he spoke to us. And he did not raise any issues in this regard when he presented his issues, his comments to us in the interview process. So this was a surprise to me. I do not understand where it comes from, and I don't think we have information that would even give us insight into what he's talking about.
Well, again, he met with us before we had drafted a proposed revised charter kind of thing.
Yeah, but all of his other comments were addressed when he came to see us. None of that was new.
So he's saying it's new and you're saying it's
No,
not.
I'm not. No. This is new.
Yes, yes.
Okay, the
And what I'm
mayor
saying-
is the first time.
And what I'm saying is that because when the mayor came to see us, we had not set up this proposed draft thing kind of thing, which he was obviously reacting to in his comments.
Right.
Yeah.
But he had the opportunity to bring to us any issues, problems, obstacles that he saw in terms of information flow that he did, and nothing was said. So he had the opportunity to speak. He did not bring anything to us to give us that we should give attention to.
But when this is weird, but when he saw what we had proposed, he then brought those issues to us because those issues weren't issues when he met with us.
And can you tell us more about those issues?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Requiring an employee to attend city council meetings and answer questions.
Okay.
And
No,
then-
but please, more. There's gotta be more than that for information flow.
Yes,
Well, and I wrote down require or request information for admin to get reports from council, which I don't understand. Does anybody?
Say that again?
That he was, that the administration should get reports from council. Isn't that what their minutes are?
Yeah, I don't know, I didn't even remember him saying that, but I
Okay.
I was having trouble following what he was saying, but you may be right about that, I didn't.
I got the sense that it was related to meetings that were happening.
Oh, like sunshine law, like just the way of
He
doing
didn't
it.
give
Okay.
he didn't make any mention about meetings.
He did, he made something about somebody lying,
Or somebody, like,
that was,
I don't know if it was
I thought he was talking about employees who appear before council, or anybody who appears before
Oh, that
council,
might have
sort of
been-
having
I might be
an
mixing.
implicit obligation to tell the truth, which I would think they would. But I didn't understand how he was tying that to the other comments he was making, to be honest with you. I was just kind of perplexed.
Maybe the word meeting wasn't used, but I thought there was something related to sunshine law.
And that might be then where it's which is then a
Then if there's
different-
information being shared
I didn't hear
in this
anything about
unofficial
Right,
thing,
yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
and again,
Good.
other than when we get back to the ethics kind of thing, I think we have to, nothing specifically and put it into the charter to address this particular issue in this manner.
Okay, so you wanna go on to the next one, which is that council use of the subpoena power should require a supermajority. He did raise that with us initially, and we talked about that and decided to follow the text that's in the Ohio Revised Code.
This could be the last chance to get supermajority into the charter.
I know, as exciting as the word super is, I do find, thank you, I do find that I'd rather go the ORC text.
All right, so the next issue gets into the ethics stuff. And I sent you some things about that. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at that.
This was where you kind of outlined, was it Barbara? Was she the one
Yeah.
who spoke at the meeting and mentioned the ORC and then
Yeah,
also?
she talked about it, and I followed up with her, because she has a lot more experience. I mean, she has tons of experience working in the public sector, I don't. But I thought that, one of the most important points that she raised really was the pretty, I would say the word I would use is robust provisions that are in the Ohio Revised Code concerning conduct of public officials and their obligations to conduct themselves in an ethical way. So that encompasses conflicts of interest issues, which we had been addressing in one of our sections, and then it also encompasses a series of other provisions that prohibit things like accepting bribes or, other things that would be the kind of bad behavior that we were trying to identify in 10.3D. One of the other salient points that she brought up is that referring to a felony as a trigger point may not be what we have in mind, because in many of these provisions, it isn't necessarily a felony. Some of them are misdemeanors, some of them could be a misdemeanor or a felony. And that was a nuance that I hadn't even considered, but when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, where did we get this idea about these particular things that we're calling felonies? And it came from the Lakewood Charter. And then the 2019 commission blessed the Lakewood language and proposed that for their draft. And then when we looked at it, we said, okay, that seems like a reasonable trigger point. But I think the approach to, specifying a felony is not the right language to use, because so many of them aren't felonies.
Yeah, I liked how, so just from my understanding, she sent us a long thing on Saturday.
Yeah, she sent some suggested language.
Yeah, and then you took it, and did you just copy it and comment today?
I used her language,
Okay,
I think. I may have made a couple little changes to it, but I
For
basically
instance, on
started
page-
with her language.
okay, cause for instance, on page 3, which she gets into, or maybe where it's like her approach drops any reference to felony
Mhm.
and then walks through how a misdemeanor can be an
Yeah.
ethics violation.
Yeah.
And then in the next page is where you mentioned in bold, the source of the felony reference was
Yeah.
Lakewood.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is you took her public comments and then made them a little more robust.
Well, I kind of elaborated on some points that she raised when I talked to her. And she sent me some other provisions that had to do with the felony misdemeanor stuff and some other references to codes. And I looked at the codes, I looked at the code sections to see how they define things like public officials and employees. And so I was really feeling like, there's a lot to think about in this area, and it's not an area that I really have expertise in. So I was doing sort of a crash course in how to approach this. But I guess that, the conclusion I came to was that, our approach to try to incorporate some good, strong ethics provisions in the charter, I think is the right approach. I think we should do it, but I think we may have been approaching it in a way that's flawed, because if we put in the provision, as she suggested, that requires the city officials and employees to comply with the general laws of Ohio regarding ethics, they're already obligated to do that. What we were suggesting was perhaps less. But we don't want to have a suggestion that because we put less in the charter, they only have to do less. I don't think we want to do that. We want to have them do what they're required to do under Ohio law. And that we can accomplish that more directly if we say they have to comply with the general laws of Ohio. The other advantage is, she pointed out that the Ohio Ethics Commission publishes guidance, and there are opinions and there's case law that helps employees and public officials understand what their responsibilities are, and that if we're going off kind of in a different direction using slightly different language, then those guideposts aren't as helpful, and it could create confusion. I don't think we want confusion, we want people to fulfill their obligations.
Okay. Because I know with the Ohio Ethics Commission, you can file that someone has done something and they will look into it, and is I know at RTA we're an entity of the state technically, but we can't accept a gift over $5. It's considered to be substantive, which would then also apply to the city, and it may referentially, but this would solidify it more, saying, hey, ORC is saying section 1003 and 1004.
Yeah.
Does it push more on the city, or does it make a cleaner line, Lee? Or do you know how this interacts?
I can't tell you right now.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious why are you talking about referencing it, just saying these ORC sections and
No, just
eliminating
referring
a
to
provision? Okay.
the general laws of the state of Ohio governing ethical conduct,
Okay. And did you have a place in the charter?
10.3. Yeah, so what I did in my email was suggest how we would go about doing this. And then you have a printout in what Lee left for you tonight.
Okay.
I had him, I asked Lee to print out the specific parts of the document.
Okay, where is that?
It's the last pages, last set of
This
pages.
one? Well, with the
got-
blue.
So
with the blue
there's stuff from the
No.
report and there's stuff
Report
that's,
is the first two of them, and then the last three are the code charter, Jesus.
Okay, so
the charter.
The thing that we're here for.
Okay, can somebody show me the front page of the section
Yeah.
we're looking at?
So,
Yeah,
well,
just-
so these are the reports.
Just the section we're looking at.
I have
the
no
one-
idea.
Okay. is
Alright,
that-
so start with 10, Article 10,
Do we wanna start with the
Show-
charter
show
or
me.
the report?
I need to see the line.
Charter.
Point 3.
This is
Okay.
Okay, and what's the front page of that one, please?
Black
It's
on
this
Top 9.6.
This one, 9.6 maturities of bonds.
Okay, thank you.
And then I can go through it.
Yeah, I don't- Can you show it to me?
Yep.
Yeah, but it's, is it second page or third page here? Third page, second page. So look at this.
So this is what we decided on.
This is what I wrote up
Oh,
over the weekend after I thought about all of this, and I made a revised draft because I thought it would be easier for you to understand it. if you saw the language. I know you like to see language, and that's totally reasonable.
Well, that's, because that's our job.
Right.
And then in B, I know our facilitator said, don't specify where they get their training. But I'm fine with specifying where they get their training, because this says if the Ohio Ethics Commission no longer provides the training, council shall authorize the engagement of another provider for that training. So that's okay with me.
Well, and what I liked was mentioning each city official shall attend training periodically from the Ohio Ethics Commission. They don't have to only give ethics training. I mean, theoretically they do, but they could do sunshine. They could
Right.
it's not limiting it and then also allowing them to branch out.
Uh-huh.
Because I am a fan of something might be relevant and
Right.
not be codified required, but it's still important.
Right.
Like,
And it does say in person or online, so that's good.
well, and I've sat through an Ohio Ethics Commission training, and it is like 6 to 8 hours
Uh-huh.
straight.
So here's the
Was
point
it
about
good?
referencing the Ohio Ethics Commission training. That was Barbara's recommendation. And and I explained to her that our general approach had been not to micromanage and to provide for some training on particular topics, but not specify where it had to come from or, what the details were. And she felt that in the case of the ethics training, it was important to reference the commission because that's what they specialize in.
And you can actually report to them outside, like they're another
From-
enforcement authority.
The Ohio Ec.
I know, so like you instead of like saying, oh, you violated the charter of this, somebody can just call the Ethics Commission and, hey, Cleveland Heights said XYZ, and then they can investigate.
Right, yeah.
Not that it has to be in the charter.
And I can make the point that I'm a certified public accountant, and as a certified public accountant, you have a lot of required training,
You have lots of hours,
lots of hours.
more than lawyers.
We have a lot of hours, and I'm in California as well, which is,
Oh,
but in any event, when it comes to ethics, the only thing that is specified is you must take this ethics training. So to say that if there is this training available,
Yeah.
and to say that this is required training at our level would not be inconsistent with such a
Right.
requirement.
I understand.
So that, the blue part would replace all the struck out red part, correct?
Yeah.
Did you notice, with the struck out red, was there anything where you were like, wow, we talked about that for a long time and now we're taking it out?
Well, we talked about several things that she suggested she suggested we should not do. So one of them was saying that there's a fiduciary duty. Her opinion, and that Kathy Petrie also offered this opinion, and they said they both made this comment to the prior commission. Their opinion was that saying that there's a fiduciary duty owed isn't really in context, because public officials have a very high standard of duty that they owe anyway. Now, if we still wanted to say there was a fiduciary duty, I think we could leave it in, but say we're not saying that relieves people of any responsibilities they have otherwise under the general laws of Ohio. But the concern with putting it in is that you may be limiting, again, you may be unintentionally having a lesser standard than what already exists because of the laws on ethics.
So instead of giving an example, what you're accidentally doing is saying, well, a fiduciary duty, and if they violate another one, like, oh, well, you didn't say, you just said fiduciary.
Yeah.
They- okay. I like broad. I think we all were talking about, we want broad ethics that are obtainable and
And I think the other thing about this that's helpful is that, the general law of Ohio may change over time. The laws that are in place today, were not in place when the charter was written originally. And they get tweaked. They may not always get enforced a whole lot, but that's another question.
Now, the struck out red section D, that we worked on that quite a bit, but that's considered unnecessary now?
Well, the part that's in D is the part that talks about felony violations of certain laws.
Right.
And what she pointed out is that these laws aren't necessarily calling for felonies. Some of them are misdemeanors.
No, I get that, but we decided to just remove that entirely then?
That's the suggestion, yeah.
Okay, so what takes the place of that?
Well, if you look at the removal language, which is on another page, it's a single page, it looks like this.
Ah, it literally says removal. Look at that. It's this one with the blue and red at the bottom.
I'm sure it's here somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it is too. Well, it's a single page too, so it could be stuck. Maybe you were the one person
Possibly,
that they just decided.
yeah.
Here,
Drew.
I can look at it up here.
Drew, you can have mine.
Thank you.
I can look on
The other
it. I already read it, I'm fine.
There you go, fine. Eventually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the first sentence refers to official because
Where are we at now?
The
7.8.
The removal, okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
the first sentence refers to official
Mhm.
because some of these provisions of Ohio law do provide that if somebody violates them, they forfeit their office. So this first sentence is about what happens under general Ohio law.
Mhm.
Then the second paragraph is what council can do.
Right,
So this is saying the council can remove an elected official if they no longer are qualified for their office, or if they violated the general laws of Ohio governing ethical conduct, or if they've been convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude.
yeah,
So the violated the general laws governing ethical conduct of public employees refers to these laws that already exist in the Ohio Revised Code,
that may include misdemeanors as well as felonies. correct?
misdemeanors as well
Okay.
as felonies.
All right, so that covers that part,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm still opposed to the moral turpitude.
Well,
It has precedent, right?
If we-
that's the reason for it.
Yeah, if we put a period after ethical conduct of public officials and employees, and then just take the rest of that out, who's been convicted.
So
of a
you're just saying
crime.
the part you don't like is moral turpitude.
Exactly, or who, that part, or who has been convicted of a crime involving moral
But-
turpitude.
Who has been convicted of a crime.
That's way too broad, way too broad.
No, I mean, moral is a word that's often been used against many
Misused.
different communities. Yeah, so
Well,
it's, yeah.
We are that close in this state to anybody who's had an abortion is gonna be considered committing a crime
Morally
involving moral turpitude.
turpitude.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
it's been used in the past to
Yeah,
oppress.
LGBT,
Yeah,
many
yeah,
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we had this
Why did she
discussion,
want it, why did she think moral turpitude?
Well, no, it's a,
Well, it's in our charter now.
Yeah. And it
Um,
but I
covers
thought it was
things.
also an ORC thing, like it.
Well,
deeper.
there's a definition of it in the law, but I think it's true that it's been misused in.
Right, yeah.
But I'm just wondering, well, Craig,
He opposed it.
he opposed it, right, so
Yeah.
she must have put it in there.
Yes,
It's there.
No, she put it
Yeah.
back in. We took
Okay.
it out, she put it back in.
Okay.
I'm hoping we're taking it out again.
Yeah, I think we
Well,
should,
I don't have a problem with taking it
I
out.
think we should take it out too.
Do we need a motion to take it out?
Well, we,
Well, we have to vote on this whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess if we do it in like section, just the 10.3 with public ethics, there was nothing outstanding in that, right? And then we
Well, I don't
moved-
know, does anybody have any questions about 10.3?
So we're looking at that?
Well, I'm just trying to walk in, so we,
No, I agree.
yeah, so we talked about 10.3
Right.
and then that's how we got to here, cause it got into removal.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
But
in
we
the
didn't say if there was any problems
Right.
with 10.3.
In the 10.3, we're looking at taking out all the strike-through red stuff and
Right.
substituting the underlined blue stuff.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
And then, is there anything else from 10.3 that got removed and moved? So like here, you said like 7.8
Yeah.
talks about removal,
Yeah.
so like your item
The
D.
section D seems to
Yeah.
have been subsumed under the removal.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
keep up.
But so as far as 10.3, the new proposal, adopt the blue language, get rid of the red language, correct? I think we,
Yeah, so I think our discussions on D, we wanted to keep it restricted to financial, to financial issues, bribery.
Well, I don't think it was, this goes beyond that, corrupt practices,
yeah,
perjury.
And like,
But I think the point is that the list that we provided here is a shorter list than what's provided under Ohio law.
Right. And what
So-
she's suggesting is general laws of the state of Ohio governing the ethical conduct of public officials,
Yeah.
which is more comprehensive than our list.
And
So-
here, I don't know if you saw this, but on this is, and Linda, she was laying out some things that were non-felonies in the ORC that trip
Yeah.
the provision, like accepting a gift,
Yeah.
Right,
and it's a misdemeanor.
right.
So we
Or
were,
having an interest in a contract or a
Yeah.
project.
and
I mean-
not recusing, yeah, so this was like,
But what if, this is probably so off the charts, it's not worth implying, but we do have a extremely right-wing legislature in Ohio. If they
Really?
were to,
That's judgmental.
and so there are other states that are, the legislatures are outlawing all kinds of things, like birth control and whatever. And criminalizing women who get abortions. So if, it would not, it's not out of the realm of possibility that our state legislature would criminalize women who get abortions.
This is ethical conduct of public officials and employees, including prohibitions against conflict of interest, accepting anything of value, and unlawful interest in public contracts.
But wait a minute, I'm just saying that the Ohio Ethics Commission is a subset of the, I
the
mean,
Ohio Ethics Commission could change
they could change
and take populations that we feel are, that they shouldn't be doing. However, how can a charter, I mean, there's, that's a much bigger.
well, I guess, and I'm not even advocating this.
No, I'm
This
just-
is for purposes of discussion. A city charter could make it stronger, could go beyond, it's,
You can't usurp the state.
well, if the state hasn't yet weighed in on it, you could.
But the state has this whole array of
What?
statutes
Yeah, statutes, not weapons.
on ethical behavior of public officials.
Yeah, well,
What you're saying could happen.
I think it
It's
could
just
happen.
like,
It
to
could happen
guild
in the
yourself
next 2
against
years.
it, I just don't even know.
Well, it could happen, but I don't know that the risk of it happening should mean that we should shortchange our ethics provisions. I think it's
But isn't there a phrase we could say in a legal way to say, we're, all the stuff that's already set up and or additional, I guess
if
you
you
can't
refer to the
really.
general laws of Ohio, it's gonna morph. They
Yeah.
could change the general laws of Ohio to add more things that aren't, more varieties of crimes that public employees can commit. But, this is,
Yeah, but you also don't wanna be so stuck in the past that you don't take anything new, and what if they commit a cybercrime?
can't-
What if
you
they,
can't
I
freeze
mean, so there's a much larger issues.
So I'm gonna move that we, in section 10.3, that we accept the new proposed language as reflected in the document, the blue language, and dispense with the red language. If that's an appropriate motion.
Would it
Is
be,
there a second?
is it friendly, should we take the 7.8 removal at the same time since they're interlinked?
I was hoping to move things forward, and I don't know if we need more
No,
discussion.
why don't we?
No, I'm just saying because of D,
Yeah, I understand that, but I
I
just,
think we can
Okay.
vote on this first, Jonathan.
Cool.
Anybody wanna second that?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Heard you, yes or no?
Well, I might be an abstention. 'Cause I'm just worried about the Ohio
Okay.
legislature.
It was 501.
I don't wanna vote no, but I might
Okay.
abstain.
You abstained, all right. So then 10.4 is really, it's just cleanup changes. That's not anything substantive.
do we need a motion on that?
I make a motion to accept my draft of 10.4.
All right.
Where's the knowledge over
Oh, wait a minute.
That's not there.
It's 7.8.
Where's 10.4? Oh, 10.4.
Bottom of the
Forgot
page.
about Walter.
So I made a motion to accept 10.4 as it is in the draft in front of you. Do I have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we'll go to removal.
Okay, second page, removal. All right. Other than the moral turpitude, were there any other problems that are
So the sentence would end at
after employees?
employees.
So this takes a supermajority, 5 members of council.
Does it say super, where does it say super?
No, but it says affirmative vote of at least 5 members.
I want comma,
You
super,
can say, you
comma.
want it to say supermajority?
No, I
Well,
know.
let's give Jonathan that. He can always point to that word in the charter and say, I did that.
Because then it'll be used in the worst context, like, what, who did that?
Who
I don't
did
know,
that?
I don't know.
All right, so do we have a motion to accept this draft of 7.8 after we delete or who have been convicted of a crime involving moral
I
turpitude?
so move.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
6 yes.
Oh, we got to unanimity before the day ended.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, because you all hate moral turpitude.
Yeah. Well, we were unanimous on the previous one as well.
Well, did we cover both
Well, there's
ethics
one more,
and
there's
training?
there's one more thing, we've got the 3.2, which is just adding a sentence that says the council shall be the judge of the election and qualification of its own members. That's in the charter today, and
Did it get brought up, or where did?
well, it came up in the changes
You find-
that Barbara
this is
suggested,
what-
because she said that we should
okay.
leave that in.
Found
It's in everybody's charters, I looked.
that, I guess.
I absolutely believe it belongs there. That's just my opinion. I
Which
can't believe
one,
we.
which one are we looking at now?
It's one page that says 3.2.
I will motion to accept the addition.
This one here?
I second it.
Alright.
We have discussion.
My only discussion was we went over this with ranked voting, and isn't this the Board of Elections that shall?
No, No,
Okay.
this has to do with council being able to remove a council member who doesn't qualify.
Well, it doesn't.
All of the
that-
other charters have this language. I went back and double checked that.
It's kind of like the idea of them having standards, right? For themselves, just saying you guys actively can.
Kind
Well,
of.
the council shall decide if you are a resident, if you're an elector, if you're a city employee in other office, that kind of thing. So that's what this is talking about. It's not talking about the actual election of that particular.
That's right.
council.
No,
not
yeah,
about
it's like the fitness while
Technical
they're running, while they're, yeah.
So is it appropriate to say election or just qualifications?
Well, this is the language that's in everybody else's charter. So that's the depth of my understanding on it.
There you go.
All right. Well, since we want to finish this up before we adjourn, so did you make a motion, Linda?
Jonathan made a motion and Guy seconded it
Just to
Alright.
accept as is, yeah.
Okay, with the addition.
to
of the-
accept it
Oh,
like
yeah, I'm
this.
sorry.
All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, so we got 6, okay. So, looking at the,
So I have a very quick question. This, on 10.4 role of council that we passed without really any discussion at all, I have a question on this. Is this the part that basically says we can be stronger than the state of Ohio? We can pass stuff that's stronger? I'm hoping the answer is yes to that.
as long as it's not in
As long as it
conflict,
doesn't conflict.
Yeah.
So my concern is answered.
You're fine. Yay! Okay, so,
Except it will conflict when they outlaw birth control.
yeah,
Yeah, that's,
so we almost finished the stuff here, so we're gonna be back tomorrow.
so we do need another meeting
I'm
tomorrow.
afraid we do.
Okay.
What's left?
Well, I asked this question about the salary adjustment frequency, and if you wanna just, indulge me for 2 minutes, maybe we can resolve this, but if you want more time, that's fine.
I
And-
would like to indulge you.
In thinking about,
We have a super-
I kinda had this epiphany when we were thinking about how often salaries get adjusted for city council, which is like on the 12th of never. And I thought, there's good reason why it's not done often. And maybe asking them to look at it every 2 years and getting the Civil Service Commission involved every 2 years is wretched excess. And it's better to do it every 4 years. And not go through that extra time and trouble. on an every 2-year basis. But what do you all think about that?
Do you mean keeping the Civil Service Commission involved and?
But just do it every 4 years instead of every 2 years.
I think the only problem with that is because if I'm serving on council, I may serve my whole term without a pay raise because now it's a 4-year thing and I can't do it during the current term I'm in.
Yeah, but they've
Those are the
already got
breaks.
that problem.
Exactly. Those are the
Yeah, and
breaks.
then you could serve your term and then the next year takes effect, I mean,
Yeah.
because there's always, we
Right.
still end up with staggered, right?
Yeah.
There's just nothing.
And I think that's an acceptable, penalty kind of thing, because having said that, I think I agree, every 2 years would really screw people up as far as, kind of scrambling all the time.
Well, and what I liked was it would reduce overall cost to the city kind of thing. You could look at if anyone else did it. I'm sure the jurisdictions would interplay with each other and go, oh, they just did it last year, it just reduces costs.
Right, because we were talking about possibly hiring a consultant to advise the Civil Service Commission on how to do this.
If
kind of
they want or need.
Yeah.
I remain, my position has remained unchanged. I was a single vote against the 2 years.
Okay.
So I feel-
all right,
So you like
vindicated.
4 years, okay. So I'm gonna make a
Thanks for
motion,
reminding
I'm gonna
me.
make a motion that we.
Well, I couldn't
You're not-
resist.
I wanna make a motion that we stay with the language we have, but make it every 4 years instead of every 2 years. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay,
Harry, do you want a second?
Let her have it.
Oh, she's, I'm sorry.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the only other thing is, I sent you the report and there were some edits in the report. I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at it, if you have any comments, questions, concerns.
This was the one that you, where you had provided feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be a lot, I dialed back.
It was helpful. I appreciate you doing it.
That was good.
I was just trying to think of the email for reference because it's been so many.
Yeah,
emails.
sure.
It was helpful.
I was,
they've been coming thick and fast.
Which document had comments from Lee saying we should change this, we should change this, we should change that? Yeah, was that the charter?
Just that came today?
Yeah.
Those couple of comments were actually Barbara's. They weren't really Lee's.
Oh,
That was a
Oh,
a
yeah.
mislabeling that the computer decided to do. The computer
Okay.
assumed it was Lee,
okay.
because he was the one who usually was making comments. So, but I just wanna be
By
sure,
Just like
I
mine.
just wanna be sure that if you all haven't had a chance to look at the report and you wanna reconvene tomorrow night, we can do that. I don't wanna shortchange anybody in reviewing.
Oh, so we don't have to?
Well, I don't know that we have anything else to do.
well, all we have to do is
We
have,
have to have a vote.
that.
So I guess the question is, do you want to take the vote to approve we agreed on some stuff tonight, so we've gotta go back in and make some edits, and that can be done. I can do that in the morning, and then we can have final documents to look at.
What about our missing people? Are they Graham is gone tomorrow as well.
Yes,
What about
Craig can come tomorrow. Roland, can you be here tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah,
So we would need to convene to just vote to approve the changes we made tonight. And we found out recently that we can do this online, but we better not push it.
Yeah, cause we can't bring the champagne.
So we would have a very brief.
Yeah, the ethics
Have a
clause
shorter
isn't in
meeting.
yet, so.
If it's a shorter meeting, I could
Oh, it'd be
probably
drunk.
make
You
it
gotta get
work,
drunk.
but yeah, my husband has evening meetings, so I
yeah,
already
I
have to be
understand,
home.
it's hard,
Yeah.
it's hard.
So we could have a short
Well,
meeting.
could
We
we
could have
do
a
this?
short meeting.
If
We
we're
could
just-
open the champagne first, and
I mean,
If we're just going to vote to approve our recommendations, including the changes we made tonight, we can do that between 6 and 6:30, I should think. I mean.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
I think we should do it because we would then have Roland and Craig, cause especially Roland who listened to all this, he has no vote. And
Yeah.
they had no vote tonight, so it'd be nice to,
I guess the thing kills me is we show up for half an hour and we're already here.
Yeah.
So why am I commuting tomorrow? Like,
yeah.
for the champagne.
because of Roland
I can do
and
that.
Craig. Because of them, just to
Why?
be
But
more democratic,
You could,
so they can
Oh.
vote.
okay, that's, I mean,
you could dial in.
I mean, I could just not show up too.
There's
Well,
that.
you could, but we would miss you.
Yeah.
And then you don't get champagne.
You'll
I
miss
can't
the
make any
prizes.
promises about tomorrow.
Okay, well, we understand.
And I won't be heard if you don't like anything in the report that I I'm good.
Alright,
No, don't say that, you
So
say
we
that
just do
all
a
the
motion
time.
to adjourn.
Say you,
Well, I just-
Do we have a motion to
Okay, I'll second.
There you
who made the motion, Jonathan?
Yep.
Jonathan did.
go. And Drew seconded.
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Me.
You're opposed?